Fun
Smart
fact.
guy. I was really hoping you weren't. The worst is when like Drake's coined, I don't know when this was, maybe this was like 6 years ago or more. Drake coined like the six because we're like the 416 is like our most popular area code. But
Hmm.
no one uses it within Canada, no, or Toronto. Like no one says the six. It's everyone outside of Toronto that says the six. And someone's like, "No way, you're from Toronto, like the six." Dude, no, that's the wrong thing to say. Like, but Toronto is, so if you want to go even further on it, Toronto is the right way to do it. But if you want to go further, you take out the TR, like the TOR, and you put in CH, and it's just Toronto.
Toronto.
Just Toronto.
Yeah.
There, just Toronto. Just like Australia is like Straya. They'll just be like Straya, not Australia. For us, like in very like casual conversation, you'll hear people say like, I'm from Toronto,"
I love
which is
that.
where in Florida are you?
St. Pete.
Cool, cool. I don't know
Yeah.
too much. I'm actually, no, I've been to Florida a couple times. Is St. Pete is where the Tampa Bay Rays play?
Yeah. Yeah, it's about an hour from Orlando.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Cool stuff. All right, guys. Well, yeah, what this is, Ashton, I know you jumped in, I think it was like the first week, like a little, somewhere in the middle. But what we've been doing with these is just keeping it free flow, like for the hour. Some people will jump in, jump out, whatever, maybe. And we just leave the space open for if you want to work on, if you have ideas for content or want to spur ideas for your content or new strategies, cool. If you have questions related to hashtag paid, cool. If you have questions related to just brand deals and being a creator in general, cool. And so the floor is really yours. Like whatever you guys want to discuss, I'm here for it. And then if other people jump in and you want to just go back and forth with other creators too, like feel free.
Cool. Awesome. I'll be back. My oven's beeping at me, so I'll be back in 2 seconds.
100%.
Okay.
Go ahead. What do you think? So what type of content do you make, man?
Yeah, so I make a mixture of comedy and like inspiration, basically.
Cool.
And so that's kind of my unique advantage with working with brands is I make skits for the brands. So it's kind of made a good way of making ads that people love instead of ads that people hate.
Nice.
But one of my questions was like getting representation, like a manager or an agent. Do you see a lot of creators having that? And how do, like, what stage do people get that? And how, any references or things like that?
Yeah, all stages is the truth. Like I remember last year, probably around this time, I was like, oh, let me start talking with creators in our network that are either on TikTok or IG below 50K in followers, and like, let me start. What's going on, Sarah? And let me start figuring out like where they're at and what they need and all this stuff. And I was thinking like, oh, followers would give not an amazing reference, but like a decent reference. And the first person had 18,000. She's like, yeah, I was talking with my manager yesterday. And I was like, whoa, oh, really? You have a manager at 18K? Like, had no idea. And then someone at 40 was like, nah, not yet. I don't think it's valuable. And so then I started to realize, wait, it's so dependent. It's so dependent on what you need. I don't want to, like, I can go on and on about this. Let me ask you this. Why are you potentially considering management or an agent?
Yeah. So I can worry less about brand deals, but have and also get with bigger brands. Like I've done really cool stuff with hashtag paid, but it's not scalable. Like it's not, I can't like grow a full business off of solely hashtag paid.
For sure.
So that was kind of my thought process was like, okay, if I had someone, and also rather than solely trying to outreach on my own to brands, like if I had some additional help that was based on commission, I think it could be a lot more scalable.
Cool. Yeah, I'll say a couple things. One, when you look to get a manager or an agent, and Ashlyn and Sarah, if you guys have perspective on this, definitely jump through. They're always probably going to take 15 to 20% of your business. it sounds like what you need is, you don't need the strategy side. You don't need the side that's going to help you cross over to be like a traditional entertainer for the time being. You just want help with brand deals. What you really need is someone to just be a salesperson for you. I don't think it's worth giving up 20%. Truthfully, I don't think it's worth giving up 20% to do so unless they can bring in major brands and like many more dollars for you. You can start really simply by just finding someone that is in and around your network that's like hungry and are down to just start reaching out to brands on your behalf and managing your inbox on your behalf. Like, you could start very easily that way and see, okay, does that relieve you of the stress, but start to bring in more deals for you? And if yes, great. And then you don't have to give up that 20%. Some managers, though, will have connections for sure, and they understand industry standard. And so then they might. The truth is, you fall into this issue of some managers have like 15 to 20 clients that they're working with at any time. And that's like, to me, it's a flag, even though it's so it's such a part of the industry. It's such a flag, because how much time can they really spend on you? And it's kind of like, if a deal comes in for Sarah, but Sarah's price is too much and Sarah's not down for it, all right, we'll pass it to Nate. Is Nate down for it? No, cool, we'll pass it to Ashlyn. Is Ashlyn down for it? No, not really. Okay, fine. No, we don't have someone on our roster that's interested. So it's a very fuzzy game. And I just don't want you to throw yourself into it and lose 20% off the bat. And then in 6 months be like, oh, they're doing nothing for me, shit. And then you can always get out of your management contract. Like, they should not be locking you in. But I'll stop there. Ashlyn and Sarah, do you guys have management or representation?
I don't. It's something I've considered. I'm a full-time creator, have been for years, have landed really big deals. Or like with big companies, I don't know if I've gotten paid enough as I could if I had somebody who knew better. But I've always been concerned that the only way I would get a manager is if they can bring in more money than I'm bringing in on top of the fee that they would be charging, and do it consistently. And for me, the thing I struggle most with is just the negotiating contracts and feeling really confident, and like, especially with not knowing the budgets of whether the PR agency or the brand I'm working with, and negotiating around that. Sometimes it's nice to have that third party do it for you instead of doing it yourself. But I don't think I would need an agent full time just to negotiate contracts for me. So I haven't yet, because those are thoughts that have gone through my head and what I'd be looking for. And then even just not knowing somebody in like the outdoor adventure niche that could land me deals that I'm not already getting myself, I guess. Long story short.
Makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I'd also say this. I think a big myth is that you should be reaching out to brands. If you want big deals, all these big brands are represented by big agencies, and it's the agencies you'll deal with. It's not the brands. And so the game is more so, who are those agencies? And then start building relationships with them, because then you win on efficiency. Like, you get, let's say Sarah works at whatever, Omnicom, you get in with Omnicom, and then you know that they represent 30 different brands, right? And so you build a relationship with Sarah, compared to, for example, and this is the tough part that we're trying to figure out how to get better at this. When you work with us, you don't know if the brand's working with us on a campaign. You don't know if they're working with us for the whole year. You don't know if they're working with us for 5 years. If they're just working with us on the campaign, you might have a great experience with them and they're down for it, but then we have to win their business again, right? And so if we don't win their business again, then, oh, you're going to work with Samsung, but so it's going to be through Whaler. It's going to be through whatever, any of these other agencies. I would spend your time trying to get in and just building relationships inside the advertising agency world. And like, I can give you names of like the big 4 agencies that work, but like, that's where your time would be best spent, because you might even not have to hire this person if you can get in with a big advertising agency. When I say in, I mean like just build relationships and know who the right people are.
And that's what I found too. Anytime I don't find I pitch out much, they seem to find me, which has been really like wonderful and cool, but I don't always know how they find me too. I like to ask to see where I came up. But that's what I have found, is it's coming out of usually Vancouver or Toronto based agencies too. And then sometimes I'll notice like yeah, big brands will work with multiple agencies because I might get reached out at different times from different agencies for the same brand too. So it's kind of interesting.
Definitely. Nate, if you could, man, like what's the ideal, like how far away are you from your goal on a monthly basis for bringing in brand deals?
Yeah, I wanna do basically double. One of my things is transparency. So I just went
Cool.
full time in April 1st. I like left my full-time job, and I'm like,
Congratulations.
thank you. And so right now I'm at like 5,000. It's not where I want to be, but I want to be to like 8,000 a month. And so that's like baseline, like, okay, I feel like solid, like I'm actually doing like as good as I was at my job. So yeah, I'm like kind of like a $3,000 to $4,000 gap that I want to, but also try to do it in a long-term way, right? Not just like, okay, I did something really great this month, but now I have to keep going back to you know what I mean?
Do you follow up like after the brand deal's over? Like, do you maintain the relationship with them actively, whoever the brand is or whoever the agency is?
With agencies, like if I do some just like ad content, usually like I've had some good repeatable business, but in terms of brands, I've had one like multi-month deal, but besides that, everything else has been kind of like one-off.
Got you. So that's again a big thing from just like a low hanging fruit. If you're working with a brand and like they like you and you like them, just staying in their inbox of like every, I don't know, 30 days. Like, yo guys, this is what I'm working on. Like, what are you up to? Is it like here's what I'm thinking about. It doesn't align with what you guys are looking to do with creators in the next 6 months. If so, let's just chat. I think is big. Another thing that you can also try do is when you're starting a deal with these brands, try get on the phone with them, because then you can also be like, all right, cool. Like, what's your email? By the way, like, what's your IG? Like, let me, if you need help or if I need help with something, or like if you need ideas, like let's connect, so that at least you start to have true relationships with them, because that's how you're going to win long term. At the end of the day, it's tough from a long term, unless you're a celebrity and they're like, oh, we want to work with Sarah because Sarah's massive and we just want her name for 24 months and we'll just pay whatever. The truth is, like, it's repeated business over time, building trust and such. But I think the way you're thinking about it makes a lot of sense.
Sweet.
Ashlyn, Sarah, what's up with you guys? What do you think? What are you thinking about these days?
I just wanted to add, so I don't have a manager, but I do have someone who helps me with my inbox, and she's kind of more of not really a sales role, but she helps with the incoming emails and does the negotiating for me. So that's really big because I'm not great at negotiating on my own behalf. So I do pay her 20% of any deal that comes through. But I think she also brings in an additional like 20%. And she knows when to kind of jack up my rates too, if it's a bigger brand. So she's good at that. I feel like it's worth it. And she kind of like, it takes like the emotion out of it. Whereas I'm kind of like the good guy. I want to help everyone. I want to give everyone a deal, where it's like, why am I giving these strangers deals? Where she can be kind of the bad guy and do that hard negotiation that I know isn't my strength. So I'm happy to like outsource that part, and it is worth it for me. But yeah, she just does it for me part-time because she has a full-time role, and I'm the only person that she's not a manager, but that she works for in this type of role.
How did you manage to find her? What was that process for you?
So I interviewed a bunch of different people. I did like 10 different interviews after like receiving a whole bunch of applications. And because I posted to like Indeed, I posted to LinkedIn, I like put it out on my social networks, my Instagram and everything, saying I was looking for someone and what the criteria was. And she was the most qualified because she had worked with influencers in the past in kind of like a PR capacity. So she kind of knew the industry, but she hadn't ever like worked on the influencer side. She kind of worked on the flip side, which I also felt was like an advantage, right? She'd been on the other side. But yeah, I did a lot of interviews before I found her because I find there's still not many people who are knowledgeable about the influencer world. Like they might be good with managing an inbox. That's not enough. Like I was like, I want someone who knows the industry too and understands like the ins and outs of like gifting or like turning gifted into like a paid collaboration. So she could handle those kind of emails too. So it was like, I knew very specifically what I was looking for.
That's very cool. That's something I feel like I would love to have and would be looking for, but feel the same way where I'm like, I just don't know anybody who, like you said, knows both sides of the industry and can really go after it for me. And I can trust to do that and do it well too. Because I'm very type A and like hands-on and like my business is my baby too. So it'd be scary to like let up that control as well.
Yeah, me too. But I think the thing that still gives me a sense of control is that like the inbox we use is a shared inbox. So like I still see everything that comes in and goes out. So it's not like a closed process. Like I know the prices she's sending. I know what's coming in. I know what didn't go through and like how she responded. So I'm still like, I don't really interfere, but I can like see everything that goes on.
I love that. That's cool. And she doesn't mind that. Like I know some people might be like, oh, I feel like that person's always watching and doesn't trust me to do this, but she's good with that.
I mean, she hasn't said anything, but she knew from the get-go that was how we were organizing the inbox. So it was just like, that's how we always have operated.
And I like that because that lets you learn too as you go and you get to learn that side. So I do love that.
Yeah, it's been working really well. I'm pretty happy with it.
Very cool.
Well, you guys can look at, I was thinking about it now. I feel like it's such a good point, like finding someone who understands both sides of the industry, or at least understands the industry just at a basic level. I feel like if you just reach out to employees at companies like #Paid, Creator IQ, Aspire, and be like, hey, on the side, I'm looking for someone to help me manage my inbox. Like, I really don't think it's going to be more than whatever, couple hours each week. Like, are you interested to get deeper into it? At least they have a lot of access to info inside their companies. Like if I were to take stuff on, I can see accepted rates for everyone in our platform, right? Like I can see like how brands are pitching certain creators. So like, even if maybe I haven't had experience before, I have access. And so if you can find people at these companies, and there's so many of us, and I feel like a lot of people would be super interested to be like, I don't want to be a manager, but I can work with a creator like Ashlyn or Nay or Sarah that like I value and I think they have great content. Cool, maybe. Like I haven't asked other people at our competitors, or I haven't even asked someone internally at #Paid. But I feel like it'd be a good place to start.
Very cool.
The other thing I'll say is there's this new creator company that's popped up called July, and they just released this feature that using AI will help you read your contracts and understand what you're signing. And so I would keep that in your back pocket of like, if you're ever doing stuff on your own, creating an account with them. I don't think, like, they're super early, so I really don't think you'd have to pay. But I don't know for sure in terms of what that would look like. I know they just released this new like AI contracting tool, and I've heard creators say some good things. So that's another thing that you can look at as just a tool. Nate, were you? I feel like when you jumped on the call, I was like, I know your face. Did you do content for Triple Whale?
No, Common Thread. Common Thread. Not okay.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
That's where I was working. That was my job that I left in April.
Oh, got you. Okay, I was like, I know the face. Why do I know the face? Because we had always looked at other like smaller agencies as competition, not just to see like what type of TikTok content we should create. Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Oh, that's awesome. That's sick.
How was it? Yeah. How was that experience creating ads in-house for something, or like creating content as a creator in-house for another brand?
Yeah, it was good. I had a small agency for apartments, like running Facebook ads and Instagram ads and stuff. So when I got into it, I wasn't a creator. Like I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go be on the marketing team at the agency. So and that's what like opened the world of creators. We started like sponsoring like some other people, and I was just like, maybe I could do this like, more seriously. So but it's also like kind of exhausting and a lot of pressure. Like it's kind of weird, but yeah.
When you say a lot of pressure, you're saying pressure to perform with the content?
Yeah, and specifically it was B2B. So it was hard. It didn't have it's hard to do B2B viral content around like what are you selling? A service. Like I don't have the product in my hand. So it's like this is how you launch Facebook ads. This is how you sell, on your Shopify store. So it was very much like this has to bring in a certain amount of leads or sales but it just, yeah, the management, the culture like changed so much in the 2 years I was there.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think it's I have a friend in Toronto who's a creator and an actor as well, and he puts out like a bunch of comedy content, but where he's finding a lot of money is just going to these brands and saying, hey, like I'll create TikTok-esque type ad creative for you. I don't care about you licensing my face. Like he's like, I know I'm a very small actor and comedian, so like I don't care about like you licensing my face. Like let me just create it for you. And he's finding a lot of success because similar to you, it's like if you can put a comedic twist on whatever it is that you're selling, it's so much easier to just consume.
Yeah. What creator is that? Or if you want
to, I can connect you guys. His name's Blake Johnson or
Okay.
Johnston. I think, yeah, Blake Johnston. He does like a bunch of like finance bro comedy content on TikTok. Here, his handle is it's Blake Comedy, all one word.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, man. So what about Sarah? What are you thinking about these days?
I've just been busy. I quit my full-time job about a year ago to do content creation.
Cool.
And I was surprised how much it has like taken off. So I've actually got a couple people helping me too. So I've got my person who does my email, and then I've got another person who's kind of an assistant role, and then I got someone who's helping with my website. So I'm kind of surprised how much it's like turned into bigger than myself. And because I was never planning on growing that fast or like having or being kind of in a manager role myself. So to have all these people and kind of working with and keeping it all together, juggling all these balls at once, plus the content creation, doing the work myself. So I don't know, it's just like a lot all the time. I feel very busy. So I wish I was less busy. I don't know how I get that wish though.
Yeah, it's crazy how like you can't grow at your own pace. Like something takes, and next thing you have this pressure to perform and live a life of someone who has whatever X number of followers or X number of success, even though like the day before to the day after, you're still the same person. Yet it feels like you have to do bigger stuff. But I think that's where you do build as a creator, is truly like building people, like having people around you that you trust that can help you build. Like that is how you build. And if people are trying to do it on their own, it gets burnout is crazy. It doesn't make sense because at the end of the day, you're just trying to maximize the stuff you want to do and then throw everything else to other people, outsource everything else to other people. Like, Nay, what I'm hearing on your side, you're like, I don't want to do outreach. And you're like, cool, I'm at a point now where you might be able to, like, you're definitely able to consider management. No doubt. I bet you'd be able to find a manager or an agent easily. And if that gives you more peace of mind, like that's an intangible that it might be really valuable for the 20% for the time being, because you're like, cool, I can now only think about creative concepts and just shoot all day. And maybe that will just give you that spark that you need from a creative perspective to launch into like to double your following as a creator. Like very well could be. So going back to like managers and agents, they're not bad people. Like it's not bad. It's just, why do you want to get in? It's always the first question. But Sarah, I hear you. How has it been as an employer, essentially?
Yeah, it's been good, been busy, been different. I guess it's a different skill set, I think, than I'm used to just kind of being on my own and doing my own thing, but then realizing like, oh, I can't do it on my own. Like I really resisted hiring. I was like, no, I can do it on my own. I can do it. And then at one point I was like, no, I just had to admit to myself that I had to hire help. And in order just to stay sane, really. But I think it's just surprising because I don't have that many followers. Like I've got, I think 28,000 on Instagram. So I'm not like a big creator at any means. So I'm like, how are these other people doing it? Like I'm pretty busy for being the size that I am. So I think it just shows the industry as a whole is just like everyone's busy. Like everyone's getting hired. There's like so much money right now going around. Everyone's hiring all these influencers, and I don't know. It's I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time.
Can I ask like what type of content you make, and I would love to know you too, Ashlyn.
Yeah, for sure. So my content is mostly locally focused. So I'm from Calgary, Alberta, and a lot of what I post is like event related stuff, and I do some food related stuff too, so like new restaurants. So because I'm so niche and my following is all people from Calgary, I get hired specifically because people want to reach that target market. So I'm pretty popular for that reason. But yeah, that's it. That's my niche.
Yeah, it's interesting how I talked to a friend about this who's a personal finance creator in Toronto. And I was like, man, you just have to like own Canada. Be like the personal finance guy in Canada. Don't brand yourself as the personal finance guy in Canada, but only talk to a Canadian audience. And people are like, oh, well, the US is 10 times as big as Canada. So like I won't get as many brand deals. And you're like, yeah, but if you become the person in Canada, or you become the person in Calgary, or you become the person in Austin, or Houston, wherever it may be, or even St. Beats, like there is some interesting plays at like, I wouldn't even call it niching down. I would just say like that's level one if you want. Like era one of Nay is like very specific, and then you just own that market, and then you keep building. Not to say you have to, but Sarah, that's interesting. Like how specific you're going, and then how well it's going for you. Because truthfully, a lot of creators don't. I'd say right now it's pretty up in the air for a lot of creators because of this whole downturn. So a lot of marketing teams are pulling their budgets, but not pulling budgets because they don't want to work with creators. They're just trying to figure out where they allocate. And so there's a bit of a lull. So when you're like, yeah, everything's great, and I was like, wow, like I haven't heard that in a long time from creators. That's awesome.
I relate a ton to Sarah. Sarah, I'm in Saskatchewan, based out of Saskatoon. Actually, COVID were my best years yet. Like I absolutely crushed it through COVID, which is like completely unusual to say, especially because I'm in the travel niche. Like that just doesn't go together. But I have specialized. So I've traveled around the world. That's kind of how I started my blog. And then ended up with a job here in Saskatchewan for a year contract as their like the government's official like travel blogger. And then that was like the bridge to going from just a passion project on my own social media channels that I had started prior to full time. And that was back in like 2015. So I've been full time since then. And through COVID and even the last couple of years, I live in Saskatchewan, so I just naturally adventure here and then share my adventures. I'm travel, outdoor, adventure, like exploring kind of a niche, solo female sometimes. And so I've just found, because even though Saskatchewan is small, like I have great relationships with all the tourism boards here. Everybody's familiar with my work. I write for all the magazines. Like I show up everywhere. I'm always on the news channels talking about things to do for the long weekend. And so it's really funny because everybody's like, oh, I have to go bigger. I have to like go further. And I'm like, I pull in 6 figures every year and I'm in Saskatchewan, and people wouldn't expect that, but it's because of the success you find locally, and then your audience buys through you because they want to do it. They know where you are. They know what you're doing. But it's also, I can still do further afield things too, right? I'm still traveling internationally. I'm still getting some of those deals. So it's like this perfect mix where I have my niche and that floats me. And then I can dabble outside of that niche too. And it's been so great. Like I've been published in books. I've been on TV shows, and I've written for National Geographic, and it's literally because I'm from Saskatchewan. Like, and nobody would ever, you would never think that, right? So I so agree with you, Sarah, that like there's so much sitting there waiting for people to be able to like capitalize on. And then, like you were saying, Danny, it's about building those relationships and reaching out to people and making it natural and authentic too. So like people shit on Saskatchewan all the time too. So it's like really fun to be able to say, hey, there's cool stuff to do here. We're not just a gap in Canada either.
Yeah.
That's like a fun part of it as well.
That's so interesting. See, what's funny on that is I like teetered on like, oh, outside, should I manage creators or not? And then I was like, nah, like it's not for me. But I was like, if there's only one type of person that I'm looking for, and if I find it, I will manage them, and it is someone romanticizing Toronto, because no one romanticizes genuinely. Like you look at New York and LA. So like the reason everyone wants to move to those cities and be a part of those cities is because you had traditional media, Sex and the City, for example, in New York. And it was like, holy shit, what is this? And then Casey Neistat in New York being like, oh, what? Like if you go under a bridge, I want to visit that bridge. And you're like, dude, it's just a rusty bridge. But it's like, why do you want to go visit that bridge? And there's so much in like, I guess as you're hearing, like there's so much, there genuinely is so much talent in Canada, specifically so much in Toronto. Yet people are like, oh, Drake, Toronto, but they don't know why and what in Toronto. And so if you can find someone, like for me, I'm always looking, if there's someone that like, or kind of like a Casey Neistat, if they kind of organically romanticize the city, then I think similar to you both, Ashlyn and Sarah, like the amount of money that would flow again from a tourism perspective, even though they're not like, hey, let me show you Toronto, they're just doing things that romanticize it, is huge. And so now I wonder if there's like you're great with comedy and skits. Like I wonder if there's a way to localize or try localize for a little bit, see if like that leads to a lot. And then again, it doesn't have to be like it's like Taylor Swift mentality. Like this is Fearless era. And then after Fearless, like you can be a pop star. And then after a pop star, you can go work with Bon Iver and be a folk star. Like you don't have to keep to the same thing if you want this long career. So that's wow, that's crazy that you two are just crushing being so local. That's so cool.
Actually, Nate, just an account I want to recommend to you. It's Leroy and Leroy, Leroy. They're based out of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and they're huge now. Like I'm just looking at their Instagram. They have 346,000 followers on Instagram. They went viral for making really niche down funny videos. And like, they kind of just make fun of things about Saskatchewan, ridiculous signs. Like there's a big moose statue. There was a big moose where and they're like, oh, there's always something to do. And they just go around and they poke like fun, genuine, clean, fun humor at all the things. And they started in Saskatchewan, and now they've again done tons of other big things. They travel a lot with it now, and they make these, like, he wears a toque in like a Canadian jersey, and he just makes fun of everything in a fun way. And there's another perfect example of like that niche humor, local. You get that following, it gets bigger, and then it goes out from there. But yeah, just something that sounds like it might be in line for you to check out and take a look at what they're doing.
Yeah, thanks. That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting to try to, I think comedy can be just like a format or a vehicle, but it's not really a good niche per se. It's like all stand-up comedians are like family friendly, and there's like really raunchy or whatever, so I feel like there's still room to like nail down a niche within that like genre. I try to do like I was really into like self-help and like psychology and books and stuff like that, and so that's been something interesting, but I don't know, it still is like super broad, like creating comedy skits about like, oh, when you try to manifest, or the person who's meditating all the time and stuff like that. But kind of interesting.
But I think too, being broad is okay as you play with things, right? As you create some skits and put it out, you'll see what connects and what hits well with people too. And then I and I should do this more with my own business when something does well, be like, okay, how can I replicate this? But in a way that I'm still feeling creative myself too, and not just stuck doing the same thing over and over again because people loved it. But I always think that's a great place to start too, is just playing around and seeing what you enjoy with it as well.
For sure. Appreciate that.
Nay, what creators do you look to, or like are you energized by?
Yeah, there's one, his name is Rich Black Guy. I don't know if you've seen his tag, but he's pretty big. And it's very much like high quality skits, because there's like the kind of like skits you film on your phone and whatever, but then there's like the more like it's like high quality. You're like, wow, this is pretty good. There's also someone I found recently, like the Adam W guy. He's like obviously like one of the biggest comedy creators. And then Matt and Justice, or Justice and something, and they make like really crazy comedy skits. But I also like people like Ali Abdal. He's like a productivity YouTuber. And so it's like those are the things I like most, like the Matt Diavella and all that type of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. What about you two, Sarah and Ashlyn? Who are you guys either looking up to or like inspired by, or think is underrated?
I follow lots of local accounts, like in across Canada, outdoor industry, and big travel accounts too. So like Brooke Wilson, she's out of Red Deer in Alberta. I follow her.
Cool.
And then like really big travelers like the Blonde Abroad. She's been around for years, just to see what they're up to. And then also just with the outdoor content, I just enjoy following it because I like doing those things too. So it's not just to see what they're doing from a business perspective, but just, yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a cool hike. Do that.
Yeah, I do similar, where I follow accounts that have content similar to me, but it's in different cities, right? So it'll be like New York or somewhere in America. And then I can see what's really popping off for that city, and then find like a dupe in Calgary that I can like talk about, right? Because like everyone was talking about these like swirl croissant things, right? It was huge in New York. I was like, okay, I'll find one in Calgary and do a video on that. And it did great, right? So it's like you can kind of see the trends come down from the bigger cities.
Cool.
So definitely that's where I get a lot of inspo from. And lately, like you guys probably are on TikTok and you've seen like the phenomenon of like Alex Earl and her Get Ready With Me videos that are really popular. So I've been dabbling with that kind of content, which is different, but it's such a great way to sell, because you can literally talk about anything in a Get Ready With Me, and it seems so natural, and you're like selling without selling, right? So it's that undersell. So I'm like, if I can get these watched consistently, like not as good as her, right? Obviously, but like this similar concept. And I did one this week that did quite well. And I was just talking about how I was going to a local sushi restaurant, right? So I can sneak in that local content while using that Get Ready With Me style. So I've been experimenting on TikTok, not as much on Instagram, because I find Instagram less forgiving for experiments, but I can play with some different video types on TikTok.
That's so interesting. It reminds me, I came across this creator this past week who's in Miami. She does like, it's lifestyle fashion, but it's lifestyle fashion from the fact that she creates her own clothes. And so she'll do like a Get Ready With Me as I'm going out, but it'll be like Get Ready With Me as I decide what I want to wear, and then just grab fabric and make an outfit and then go out type thing. Like it's such a crazy twist, but I
That's
like
impressive.
what you're yeah, it's not like I saw it and I was like, whoa, what? Like I was looking at it, it was like over the past 15 days, her biggest or second biggest video was 2 minutes and 40 seconds long of her. And I was like, I have not seen people like get this amount of views on videos that are this long like that. That's insane. But do you guys go live ever on Instagram or on TikTok or other platforms?
Rarely.
No.
I've done it a couple times, kind of similar, like Get Ready With Me. It's like pack my gear bag with me as I'm like going on a big hike, and it'll be like like an hour and a half. I go through what I'm taking and then take it with me. And it has been well received. Like people really enjoyed it. And then it just lives there afterwards. But I don't do it often. I think maybe because I feel like it's a lot of work, but then it's like it's live and it's done and you forget about it too. So yeah.
Yeah, I've just been asking creators this to see, like, are people going live? Are they not? It feels like there's not that many people that are outside of like gaming and doing those like really, I don't know, those really weird esoteric things on TikTok. Like there's those like clam shuckers that will like go live for the whole day, open clams, grab the pearls or whatever it is, and then like that's their content, or people packing boxes for their companies. Like, cool, I've seen that stuff, but I haven't seen creators just go live and just talk about whatever it is that they do, or whatever it is, that thing that they want to connect to their audience in. So I've been wondering, like, is it a value because many people aren't doing it? So it's like, if you can figure out how to do it well, will it benefit you? I don't know.
I think it definitely could. There's actually a finance creator out of Calgary, and she does weekly lives like consistently, and it's kind of like an ask me anything, and she just answers whatever people are coming to her. And it's really consistent, and I appreciate it. I don't always tune in, or I might tune in and out, but I like the consistency behind it. But then I like the open platform where you can ask her anything too, versus I think where I get scared is like, oh, I need to be like planned and prepared and know what I'm going to talk about. And what if there's dead space and I'm like, I don't know what to say, or somebody else is talking back. And I think, whereas like if you're shucking oysters or doing boxes, it's repetitive, which is soothing. And then you don't have to worry about anything when you're doing it on camera. It's just the same thing over and over. So I don't know if maybe that's what's like stopping me in the fear behind it.
Fair. Yeah, programming is definitely a big part of it. Like, I feel like if you can get to the point where you understand your programming and you're like, oh, I know exactly what we're doing over the hour, then maybe that's the powerful point to get to. But yeah, like anything, like trying to get there is going to be awkward.
I feel like I would need like an activity. Like, what are people watching? I don't just want them like staring at my face and I'm like trying to come up with something to say, and then it's just like really boring. So like I've done a little bit of like going live with local events and kind of showing people what's there, but then I feel like that gets boring too, because you're just kind of filming a crowd, the crowd's standing around. Like there has to be something worth watching. So I don't know. I struggle to figure out what I could go live with that would hold people's interest for longer than 2 minutes. I don't know. So that's why I don't really dabble in it. And also, like, I've never gotten paid for a live. I've never gotten asked for any sort of like advertising on a live. Any demand from like a brand perspective. So that's why it's not much of a focus.
Yeah.
Well, you won't get asked. You won't get paid if you don't do it.
That's true. If I was good at it, maybe I would be getting paid for it, right? It's like cart before the horse.
Yeah. I did a few lives like soliciting like skit ideas, and I was so surprised. I had I don't remember. I made like $1. It was nothing, but it was like people. It takes a lot to make like $1 on like the TikTok coins and stuff like that. So I can definitely see it being viable with like building up something consistently.
And sometimes I wonder if we underestimate, like Sarah, you were saying, oh, it's boring, it's just the crowd standing around, but maybe people tuning in don't think it's boring. Like it might feel boring because like here I need to provide some sort of entertainment, but maybe people are happy just to tune in and watch stuff. Even when I think of my use of live content, I might not tune in for the whole thing, but I do enjoy coming in and knowing that thing is happening in that moment and tuning in for 5 or 10 minutes. And I like watching it even if there's not a lot going on. So maybe other people feel the same way. Like, I don't know, maybe you could test it too and see. I don't know. It's hard though too, because like one time it could do really well and the next time not. And then it's what made it do well or not. But.
Interesting.
I was
go ahead.
I was curious about for both of you, like what your like, do you do long form content, and kind of what's your like go-to content right now that's like you're building over the long term, I guess?
I guess for me, it would be my website and blog, especially because it's travel related stuff where people can search out best things to do here or wherever. And that's I found very valuable. Again, with tourism boards versus like brands, tourism boards obviously want content to live for a long time. And I mean, a story comes and goes. And while I can save it in a highlight, very few people go through that afterwards. So my long form content ends up being on my website or on their website or things like that too. But I found that's always very valuable in all of my pitches versus just social media content that disappears right away and isn't as searchable.
So that's interesting because I'm the same, where my website is my long form content, but I can't get anyone to pay to be on my website. Like no one is interested. I've been trying to like add it in as like a upsell or trying to get people to want to be on it, but it's like there's no demand to be on my website. So I don't know. I haven't figured out how to monetize my website, but it is something that I'm just kind of personally passionate about, and it's kind of a repository of like all the information that I generally post, and it is very popular, but I make no money off my website.
You're on your website, you're always posting like current events or events that are coming up. And do you post about events I've been to? I went to this, here's the experience of it as well? Or just
no, I don't. I used to more blog format, but I cut it. Just it was too hard to keep up with.
Yeah. Because I can see with events, social media works really well because it's the lead up to it, then going to the event. And then once the event is done, it's kind of like until next year or whenever it comes around again. But that being said, I feel like with your blog too, because you have so much knowledge about events and coverage of it, it's an opportunity to make some really good lists. And I mean, I'm a travel writer, so I love to tell stories, but when it comes down to SEO, those lists are what people are searching all the time. So is there a way you could format all the events you've been to and then start pitching that to I don't know if it's like the businesses running the events that reach out to you or PR agencies for them, but you could almost, when they reach out to you, say, hey, this is something I'm doing. Are you interested in being part of it? And then if you're sending them a package of X number of dollars, you include that as a service you provide as part of that package. And then you could start incorporating it and in a way start getting paid and then build it. And other companies will see the value in it over time. I don't know. I don't know if that's a helpful suggestion.
No, I think you're right. I think the problem is that I need to better showcase the value that's there. Because right now, everyone just sees what you put on Instagram. They see the videos. They're like, oh, I want to hire an influencer. So it's like, that's what they want. And I'm like, what I also have this website that's tried and true. It consistently gets hits, right? We don't know how a video is going to do. But people are just like, a website, ugh, gross. Like, that's so old school. Like, no, give me the fancy video, right? Like, I want a chance to go viral on TikTok. So it's just like, I think people are just like into the new shiny stuff, whereas like the website's a harder sell for me. But I'll get there. I just haven't really been pushing it as much as like I should be.
Do you share analytics with them saying this is what you'll get, or like an example of what you'll get from my website if you do put something on? Do you have like a little media package?
No, I don't. I should put something together, like some sort of nice, pretty package that shows like what kind of they can expect for hits on it.
Because that might help push them, and then you can also push like the longevity of it being on the blog versus
exactly
on social media. It might help, but yeah,
I'd agree. I definitely agree. Like if you think about it you can even do little tests, right? It's like you can say, hey guys, like events happening or whatever, the thing is happening next week, and then know how many people visited versus how many clicked through. And it's like, hey, business, if you want to start selling something through the site, that obviously lines up with everything you're doing, so it doesn't feel super out of place. I feel like you could probably get some really good it seems like really good income from it. I'm with you that like from a traditional perspective, they don't see it as valuable anymore. But an interesting thing I heard was the guy that founded Complex Media. He said that when they were starting their YouTube shows or thinking about their YouTube shows and trying to find advertisers for them in like 2012, 2013, 2014, he would always report YouTube analytics and metrics, but in relation to TV. So he wouldn't be like, oh, these videos get an average of 2,000 views. He would be like, oh, this video, like the TV supposedly worked on like a 24-hour cumulative viewership, 3-day viewership, 7-day viewership. And he would just present the information in that way. So it felt like it was comparable to TV, which a lot of these ad buyers were buying, even though it was this new medium. So it's something to think about, like when you're presenting it to these businesses, like what do they think about today in terms of what metrics, and then just find those same metrics and spin it that way so they feel like they're looking apples to apples, even though they're not.
That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
It provides a perspective, which is actually, that makes sense.
Mm. Well, see, we got 8 minutes. This was a lot of fun. If you guys have, if there's any other questions or things that I can answer or that you want to ask each other.
It's really cool to be able to connect, especially with people outside of where I live. It's always nice to just chat this stuff over. Sometimes I feel like I'm an island and I don't ever have anybody just to have a casual conversation who's in the industry, but can bring a different perspective. So I found this really enjoyable to chat with you guys for the past hour. So thanks.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, for sure. Really helpful.
Same.
Of course, guys. Of course.
Danny, am I able to email you?
Yeah, definitely, dude. Here, I will give you my email here.
Is there a press? So I'm trying to put together a media kit. Any recommendations from anybody here on that? I know some people like beacons for like the data side, but I don't know if there's any guides or templates or must-have things.
I did my media kit on Canva. Mine's quite extensive, like it's probably 10 pages, but it's like I've got all the data, all the stats, all the links. So if you're looking for like giveaways or blog results or social media campaigns, and then I've gone through and in a spreadsheet pulled all the data from it to put it together to say, this is how this worked. These are the posts I did, links out to everything. I'd be happy to share mine with you if you just want to look at something and see how, whether mine's good or people like it or not, I don't know, but it's got all the information when people really actually want to know who I am, my brand, and the work I've done. But I'm very happy to share that with you.
That'd be amazing. Do you find yourself using it like often?
I get asked a lot for my media kit. And anytime I've ever sent it, I mean, whether, I don't know how deeply anybody looks into it, but some of the feedback I have is like everything we wanted was there. I think they get a really good view of who I am and what they can expect from me. So it manages those expectations really well. So like even if a brand wants to know about some of my analytics with giveaways, I have a little section that just has a screenshot of 3 brands I've done giveaways with. So it's full transparency too, because I never want a brand to come to me and think they're going to get certain results and then that doesn't happen too. Like I always feel a lot of stress about that. But
yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, what's your Instagram handle?
It's at Nay Cook Nelson. I can strap it in here.
What's interesting about the media kit, like I made mine in Canva too, but I never get asked for mine. I maybe get asked once a year for my media kit, so I just don't use it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think that there's been an interesting conversation I've had with a bunch of creators over the past month about media kits, and the idea is like you can use beacons or you can use I think there's a business called like Media Kits or MediaKits.com. I think anyway, like you can pull from any one of those, but what these media kits don't offer, and I think Ashlyn, you're getting at this, is when marketers look to work with creators, they don't like, they care about numbers to an extent, but it doesn't tell them why they would work with you. Like what we see all the time is a creator pitching a brand being like, yo, I've loved your product for 8 years and like it'd be so much fun to work together and we can do such cool things and here's an idea. But the thing is, the marketer's truly using you as a vessel to get to your audience. And so the best way to do it is talk audience first. So if you can say, for example, you're like, oh, these are the types of content I create, here's what my audience says about me, and you either like you screenshot comments, for example, or if people have messaged you on IG or anywhere in the DMs being like, dude, what your videos do for me, for example, and you kind of give them a like, here's the audience you're essentially buying. As like transactional as it sounds, I've seen that to work really, really well, because then it's not just like anyone has numbers. Like you have numbers, and then someone who's bigger than you has numbers, but it's like, what does that really mean today when it seems like everyone can get 1 million views? Which I know is still very fucking hard to get 1 million views. So like, I'm not saying it's super easy, but if you go that way, in addition to everything that like it needs to be presented of audience and engagement and such, I think you might have some more. At least they'd want to get to know you, because they'd be like, oh shit, like these people are following him, and they say this. We kind of want in.
Sweet.
That's actually, I'll provide analytics when I'm doing usually tourism campaigns. So I do a big report and then have like a nice fancy wrap up page. And I go through and I screenshot comments and DMs from people, and I include that in the analytics report. So it's not just like, oh, it reached X number of people. It's like, this is what people said. And it'll be like, oh, I booked this weekend at this place with my family because this sounds so cool. And I found that to be really helpful for that company. But I like your perspective, Danny, of including some of that stuff beforehand, not just in the analytics afterwards, so they can see in advance, this is what people have traditionally said, this is what you can expect. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's super smart. I think, again, it's like tell the marketer why the audience follows you. Because it's like, oh, they follow me for a laugh in this specific region. Like right away, the marketer can say, hey, like, regardless of numbers, like, yeah, we want that audience. Or Ashlyn, to your point, like, oh, you've done this before. Or you've seen the audience actually act in such way when we're trying to get them to act in such way. I think that's really smart. So yeah, and if you take that same approach, then slowly build it up over time, I think you might have more. If they do ask for a media kit, I think you might have more success.
Cool. Thanks.
And sometimes I might even just include that too, like if I am talking with a PR agency or brand, at the end of the email, be like, and say, hey, if you are curious to like do a deeper dive into like who I am and my brand, here is a link to my media kit, and offer it, even if they didn't ask for it. And then it's always included, and then it's up to them if they want to learn more. And sometimes like I'm hoping they'd be curious because they're already reaching out to me, that they might say, hey, okay, let's see who this person is. So if you have one set up and have it in a drive or linked out to wherever, you can just add that in.
Sweet.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you for coming through. Please feel free to keep coming through if you have questions or you just want to hang every Friday. What this is going to end up being, we don't really know. We're keeping it like super broad right now. And then we're seeing what it will look like. We're going to run this for for another 3 weeks, just to see like what questions people are asking, who's coming in, who's not coming in. And then from there, decide, do we make this just like a consistent hang? Do we do this where it's topics every week? Do we do this where we feature either a creator or someone from the industry to talk about something specifically? And so if there's ideas or there's things that you guys want, let me know. And if not, maybe I'll see you next week.
Perfect.
Sounds good. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Catch you soon.
Bye.